You're watching No More News.
Hello, I'm Adam Green with No More News. It's August 20th, 2018, and tonight I am going to be talking about the Robert Maxwell promise scandal, as well as Sabbatean Frankism with my special guest, Truthful Resistance. Truthful Resistance on Twitter, 9/11, BCCI, Promise, Inslaw, Rafi, Robert Maxwell. I don't even know how to pronounce all these. Mogilovich. We'll get into all this with Charles. Is anonymous. He's a young guy. He's got a YouTube channel, Neo Bolshevik Zionist Revolutionary. And Charles, thank you for joining us tonight. And I'm excited to get into this kind of information. I've been seeing your tweets. I've been following you on Twitter, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you very
Thanks
much.
for coming
Yeah,
on.
thank you very much for the introduction. Yeah, I've been just talking to people like you, kind of like provoke these three topics: it's Robert Maxwell and Promise and Sabbatean Frankism. And yeah, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me on and allowing me to, effectively use your platform for something good. That's very, I think that's very trustworthy of you on your part.
So
So
this is
yeah,
information
we
that
can
nobody
get
else is
into
covering,
Robert
right?
Maxwell's foundings first, his origins and what he represents. That's a good start.
Oh, that not nobody else is talking about this. This is like rare and obscure, and a lot of people in truth media haven't covered this information about Robert Maxwell and Promise.
Yeah, yeah. Are you having any audio trouble on my end,
Yeah, it
by the
seems like
way?
we do have
Just
a little
wondering.
bit of a lag, and
Lag? Okay, I'm trying to take
yeah.
care of that.
Let's
I don't know
ask.
if I have any
I'm gonna
lag
look
right
at the
now.
chat and see
I'm gonna have to
how
fix
is
it. I
the
don't know if I should.
chat or how's the stream chat. Is the audio
It seems
okay?
to be okay. I'm not sure if I'm lagging or not. It should have okay internet. Just let me know. Yeah, we could start at Robert Maxwell if I'm
Okay,
here.
cool. Let's start there. That's how we started our title, so we could start there. So
Alrighty. Well, Robert.
who
Yeah.
is or who was Robert Maxwell?
Well, Robert Maxwell was a Jew from the Czech Republic, and he emigrated to Britain, and he was involved with the Mossad and international Jewish communities, like the largest, most influential ones, and thus the Mossad for most of his older life, his adult life. So he was basically what you considered a Bolshevik, an old labor Zionist, because at the beginning of Israel, of course, we know that it was founded by the USSR with along with many NKVD operatives and such. So the Israel came in after the USSR founded it, essentially. And that's the strange part about it, is that we lended support after. So he belongs to this old guard that established Israel as a labor Zionist, had a mixture of Marxism, international Marxism, and Zionism, and that's what it was started out as a labor Zionist movement, and that's kind of what he Zionist, but in practice, a militant labor Zionist, a terrorist essentially, because they'll terror. So he's a Zionist terrorist, labor Zionist, and he was one of the most influential people, I'd say, the 21st century that we don't know about. And LaRouche said on his EIR Executive Intelligence Report that he could be considered the second the second Kissinger, the second Henry Kissinger, who we know was involved with Russia in China at some point. So he's very influential on the inside world, the underworld. Everybody knows him on the underworld, except on the outside. Nobody knows him. If you type in his name on YouTube, he doesn't come up. This entire subject is very unknown, and that's the whole strangeness about it. Actually, is that it's an actual ongoing case, under the Promise Inslaw, under the Inslaw scandal, uh, and Robert Maxwell isn't directly involved. So anything related to Promise is now not being talked about. It's very strange.
So it's
We
a
also
huge
have things
cover up.
from Muckrock, which is a FOIA request organization that says that this is a pending case. The FBI is classifying more documents as we speak, so it's very untalked about, and I don't judge people because I just found out about this a few months ago. I'd say
Who did
is
you
like
learn it from, or where did you learn it?
I learned it from well, I learned it from because Activist News actually did a interview with Brendan O'Connell along about last year or a few years ago. I watched about Brendan as I saw Activist News, and then this was before any falling out, and then I saw that pretty interesting guy, and then Daniel also made a video about Brendan Robert Maxwell and about Jeffrey Epstein's connection to his daughter. And then I made the connection that Jeffrey Epstein is connected to Robert Maxwell, and then this is actually a blackmail cell surrounding 9/11. And Ehud Barak also is involved with this scandal, the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. So then it's a subsequent layer of information. So you find out that Epstein and all the 9/11 collaborators are involved with Epstein. Then you find out that Epstein is involved with Robert Maxwell. So it's layers of information that come together and like converge at some point or another.
So Maxwell
And
was
here
a
with
media
Promise.
mogul.
Yeah, he's a media mogul within Britain, and he blackmailed multiple British politicians. We don't really know for sure, but he was a blackmail operative, and he was working for the Mossad, the KGB, and some with China, Chinese military, the PLA. So he was working with everybody, American allies, and he sold Promise to all our allies, derivatives of Promise. So the derivatives of Promise, for instance, is a company like you have different kinds of program derivatives that come from Promise. Hillary Clinton created many. Like there's one called Systematics IP. There was PTech is actually an offshoot from Promise, and that's why I don't talk about PTech because Promise came from, and this is where BCCI came from, is a bank that was using Promise also. So that's why I don't talk about too much about the small increments of 9/11 anymore because Promise plays such a large part. That's where a lot of these main points.
So it looks like
And
Promise is the software
BCCI.
which was stolen by the Justice Department.
So one more time.
I said Promise is the software. It says stolen by the Justice Department. Who created the Promise software, or who's in control of
Yeah.
it?
Well, Rafi Eaton was the who actually went to the Justice Department and stole it, and he was only able to do that because, of course, he had assets within the State Department. So Rafi Eaton came from Israel, stole this software, and it got in the hands of Robert Maxwell, and then Robert responsible for distributing it to allies and enemies, both. So he was like the agent of chaos, and Rafi Eaton was the enabler.
And what does this software do? What does the Promise software do?
It is you could compare it to information utilizing software. So think of it when you utilize something, you use it to your benefit or you're using it.
Like big data algorithms?
Yeah, especially a search engine, especially a giant search engine before any computer or any program that was ever created. And it was basically the first search engine where you can go through the government's, pick any database you want and go through any of the information just using key letters, keywords, the first search engine, and nobody knows about it. Nobody. And this is the crazy thing about it. Nobody truly knows about it, but it's an ongoing pending case involving Danny Casolaro, Trump, Hillary, and basically every single administration since Bush Sr. That's how deep this goes.
And so when was the software created, and where is it being used?
It's being used in, I'd say, well, we don't know precisely the modern use of it now, like who's using it now, but we can say that the U.S. is still using it to a degree because this is this is came from. According to Edward Snowden, um, all these spying apparatuses that were exposed all come from Promise.
Mhm.
So,
Snowden has talked about
Prism.
promise before.
What was that now?
Has Snowden mentioned the word
Say it
promise?
one more time.
Has
The word promise comes from
no,
well, it comes from
Snowden has
inslaw.
Snowden
A name.
said
Uh,
promise.
oh, you want to know the what the abbreviation stands for?
No, no, no. Well, yeah,
It's
I could take
the
that.
abbreviation.
Hmm. Oh, it
Sorry,
comes
it's just
from
my. I
Prism.
guess my
That
internet is cutting out.
yeah, we might have to reconnect the call. You want to try reconnecting the call?
Yeah,
Okay.
go in and out. Okay, I'll join and rejoin.
All right. Go ahead. Looks like how's the stream, chat? Is it coming through? It's going back and forth between like green and yellow and kind of
All
orange.
right, how's that?
It should be better. Hopefully there won't be the same lag again.
All right.
So I was asking, yeah,
Yeah, that's fine.
all everything you said I want to hear. What is the abbreviation for promise? Did
Um,
Snowden mention promise?
Now say that one more time.
Did
Sorry, it just cuts
Snowden
out in
ever
and out sometimes.
mention promise software?
Now, what about the Promise software?
Did Snowden mention it? Did he ever say
He
like talk
actually
about it?
the all the I was mentioning all the spy projects that he exposed all come from Promise, and
Okay.
also Brendan O'Connell mentioned that also. I guess Prism comes from Promise,
Mm-hmm.
and Peter Thiel is connected to I think Palantir or a derivative of Promise, and he is directly connected to cryptocurrencies and so on. So Promise is being used as a as basically a backdoor into everything. It's the first search engine. It's like the first information browser, and it was in the hands of the Mossad and the KGB first. They had use of it, but they had use of it for like foreign agents, foreign assets. So,
Hmm. Cool.
but I'm not sure. Yeah.
It looks like my video just froze.
Huh. Yeah. This is
Oh
very
well, you know what?
vivid
We'll
information.
we'll just go to full screen, and then I don't have to be on camera. We could just talk, and then my desktop is showing. Here, I'll send you my desktop so I make sure that you're seeing it.
Okay. Sorry. Maybe it's the information we're talking about, huh?
It
I
could
mean, this is
be.
literally the bane
I mean, if
of
they're gonna be messing, we
I
know
mean,
they're out there, and if they're gonna be messing with anybody, they're gonna be messing with us. So
yeah,
share screen.
Brendan O'Connell topic. I mean, if you can compare this to any, I mean, this is literally Epstein's connection to 9/11. I mean, this is it, and it's very, this is this AIG, all these companies, they don't want this out because this is what gave all those companies money. 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they are very unhappy.
So, and I feel like I had another tidbit about Prism, but it's escaping me now. So, is it who's in charge of the Promise software now? Like, who is utilizing
Well,
it?
see, it's since it was stolen, no one's in charge of it actually. It's just people keep on creating derivatives. Each company, each user keeps on creating different derivatives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whoever has it to kind of basically to patch it and outflank one another. So it's basically an open technology that's been modified, and they just modified, and derivatives are created, and they're being used, and it's being used by every country
So,
to move black funds.
so it kind of sounds like it's just like I'm trying to see the significance of this program, and I don't know if I'm fully getting it. It seems just like it's an old program that a lot of new
Well, it's the first data utilizing program, and it was stolen by Mossad and KGB, and it was
Mhm.
also said to be used in 9/11, according to the FBI KGB asset named Hansen. He actually interrogation said that Promise was used in 9/11, and that the
How is it
Russian
used in
mafia sold it
9/11?
either jihadists or they just sold it to the Mossad is connected to the Russian to
Hmm.
jihad. That's
Yeah.
what they don't want to say. Is
So
that
how was it
the Mossad
used in 9/11? How was the software used?
it was used in connection to the BCCI Bank and PTEC, and people don't know that PTEC comes from Promise, and that's why it's really important that we know that the where it came from.
Has
the
Bolin
source.
reported on that Promise or PTEC came from Promise?
I don't actually know who has reported on that at all, but I do know that it's strange because this is the connection with Trump and Clinton to 9/11. This is the connection with Epstein to 9/11. This is how we connect it all to Trump and Hillary. And and also it's strange because Promise is connected to the KGB. I mean, the FBI said that Robert Maxwell may have been connected to the KGB, and it is also said in the book Israel Super Spy about Robert Maxwell that Robert Maxwell was going to stop the collapse of the Soviet Union single-handedly, but was told not to. So it's yeah. So this is not talked about, but it's not because people. We can't just assume malice by just because people have not talked about it. They just may not have heard, just like I may not have heard, because this has been around for decades and I didn't know about it. Just so to think that other people somehow should automatically know about it just because I know about it, that's something that actually happened to me. I felt like, I jumped the board too quickly, and I did that to people, even you. So that's a problem that I think everybody needs to overcome. Just because we find out about this, you can't just take it out on other people. So
yeah, you're
Robert
kind
Maxwell
of like
is
trying
basically
to
the connector for Epstein.
hold on, Charles. Hold on, Charles.
And
can you hear me, Charles?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to
I can
elaborate on that. Like, you're kind of on Twitter, like challenging people, like, why won't you talk about Maxwell and Promise scandal?
I was basically just doing it because I was frustrated because I can't find many people to mention it. I was actually the first person to get Brendan to mention it. I was in the comments, and my comment got a lot of likes, and he actually talked back. So that's interesting, and he was very actually honorable about that, how he went about it. He mentioned it and everything. So I think I just took my anger out on you guys rather than trying to approach you in the best way possible.
It's kind of like Promise is just another aspect, another way that Israeli Soviets are in charge of, like, Talpiot.
Well,
slash,
it is another
8200.
aspect, but it's a chief aspect, and it's basically one that exposes Trump's connection to Hillary. Because see, people like SGT Report and other people like Jerome Corsi, they get around everything because they don't mention things like Robert Maxwell, because his daughter is connected to Prince Andrew and literally connected to Epstein. Epstein is connected
and
to Robert
Elon
Maxwell
Musk,
through his
right?
daughter.
So what's Robert Maxwell's daughter's name?
Yeah.
What's Robert Maxwell's daughter's name?
Her name is Ghislaine Maxwell. G-S Lane Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell. It's a really strange name.
What is Ghislaine?
Basically his name, Ghislaine Maxwell.
That's a weird name, Ghislaine. What ethnicity is that? Do you
know?
If
without a G, it's his Lane Maxwell. So if you kind of understand that.
So she's a socialite. Her dad was a billionaire, owned the Daily.
Yeah, and if you go on my Twitter, recently I've been exposing to Brendan and everybody, like Cybele Edmonds has been liking all my stuff regarding Robert Maxwell. I don't know if she doesn't talk about it or she doesn't know about it, but she's been liking my stuff. And this is what's weird is that Ghislaine Maxwell was seen like years ago in pictures with Elon Musk, Prince Andrew, Trump. So I mean, Robert Maxwell and his family are connected to every single person involved with Epstein, but for some reason nobody talks about it. Everybody talks about the NXIVM cult, right? Because the NXIVM cult is sensational because it involves sexuality and such. It's all sensational, rather than mentioning Robert Maxwell, which is the final. See, there's a book called The Last Circle, actually, regarding Danny Casolaro, Robert Maxwell, and Promise, this whole scandal. And it's because this is kind of like the last part, and it's one of the most dangerous parts to talk about because the case is still going. See, Brendan talks about we need action, 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 but he doesn't talk about what we need action towards. We need to have multiple fronts, one, a front for information, a front for on the ground, talking about 9/11, so we need to have a front for things that are actually ongoing. This is an ongoing.
How do you like
case.
the GDL?
Yeah, I mean, see the JDL. I mean, this is yeah, like this is an ongoing case. Robert, I mean, technically, Robert Mueller could ask questions about Trump to about Robert Maxwell. But this is the problem: is that nobody's on the street saying, "Hey, talk about Robert Maxwell." See,
How is
because no
Maxwell
one knows
connected
that
to
there's an
Trump?
ongoing case,
How
and
is
that you
Maxwell's daughter connected to Trump? She just has a photo with him.
oh photos, and also she's connected to Prince Andrew, who was in that case, and she actually was forced to hand over 17 years of documents recently in 2016 or 17. She was forced to hand over 17 years of documents, and now we have people like Stephen Bannon talking to Jeffrey Epstein, getting his support, and Steve to Brock Pierce, who is basically Hollywood blackmail. Hollywood blackmail by either the Mossad or the CIA, and that's what Steve Bannon represents
You,
is
well,
CIA blackmail
you
or
know,
some sort of
something just came to
blackmail.
mind. You know the guy Cappy, Isaac Cappy, the Hollywood guy
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
saying,
he's a psyop,
okay,
so
but
that
what
they'll
he's
shut down the
saying though,
media.
but what he's
He's a psyop, so they'll shut down us. I'm telling you right
okay,
now, he and I know who the other guy is, the live stream guy. Uh, but this is the thing is that he's a psyop. Cappy's a psyop because he won't talk about Robert Maxwell. He won't talk about Roy Cohn. He won't talk about Roy Cohn's connection to Mossad
well,
and
he
all these
may not
and how it's a
know,
full
but
circle.
he may not know
How
about
Clinton
that, but
equals Trump. But
Charles,
see, but it's
why?
too
Let
obvious,
me tell
man.
you why I
It's
brought
too
him up.
obvious.
Let me tell you why I brought him up. Because he's saying that all Hollywood and all big industries are controlled by blackmail, by sexual blackmail. What he's saying there, I agree with, and I think he's right about that. And
Well, yeah, but
with
see, but he's
Nexium,
irrelevant though
Roy
because we already
Cohn,
knew that, dude. Me, you, Brendan, we all do great work. You guys do the best work. And see, for
thank you.
Cappy to come in and try to take the spotlight from you guys who do the best work, you guys make the full circle. You explain out how it's all connected, how blackmail's been used on every single front, on every side. That is more important. See, rather he's only focused on one part, which is Hollywood. He does that on purpose, and that he's a sensationalist, and he is dangerous. He's dangerous to you and Brendan and every single person on the internet because he fails to talk about all of it. It's a duty. It's a duty to talk
I
about
feel
every
like the
single
big
thing
psyop
because
to
if you
take us
don't,
down is Alex
again,
Jones,
you're
not
promoting.
Cappy.
Yeah, it's Alex Jones.
That's where
Cappy
the
was on
psyop
Alex
to
Jones, and that's all
take
we
us
need to know.
down.
Alex Jones is a front. You know, you can be on
Cappy
Alex Jones
went on
without being
Alex
control
Jones.
opposition, but when you are agreeing with them still,
Mhm.
when you're on the same side, that means that he is there to steer everybody away from the facts. Yeah, we know there's Hollywood, but what about who's controlling Hollywood? It's the Mossad and the CIA, and they are controlling everything. You know, so yeah,
Alex
Cappy
Jones has been
definitely controlled
saying
opposition. He's
Alex
doing
Jones
things
has been
something
saying
called the
every
Donut Gate.
day, all day that
What matters
China owns
more is what we
Hollywood.
are doing. Roy Cohn and Robert Maxwell, those things matter. That and Promise's connection of 9/11 and BCCI. That's really what matters. See, because it's all connected. And so now we can talk about, I guess, Sabbatean Frankism.
Oh, hold on.
There is a little
I'm
more
not
we can
done. I'm not done with
go into with Robert
Maxwell.
Maxwell.
I'm not done with Maxwell. Do you see up on the screen Trump, Nos, Epstein, and Maxwell at Mar-a-Lago in 2000?
Yeah, yeah, I see that. That's it. See, I mean, they're telling us. I mean, you have look at there, Elon Musk. Elon
Well,
Musk's involved with the NASA and the KGB through Maxwell. See,
look at the
NASA and
Bronfmans, the
SpaceX is a
Bronfman
KGB front.
heiresses, the Bronfman socialites. You know, they're into the sex cult stuff too.
Yeah, it's NASA and Elon Musk are Kabbalistic KGB front through the Mossad. See, that's why they're able to do all this stuff. Is because they pre-planned it, and it's all through Ghislaine Maxwell, and Prince Andrew. I mean, they literally blackmailed the British royalty. Nobody talks about this. The only people that will talk about this is Brendan, a few other people. Robert Maxwell is literally one of the most important things, and nobody will talk about it. We'll only talk about the Nexium cult because it's sensationalized, and it's sensationalized through sexuality because see a lot of people are. I mean, sexuality is something to be guilty of at times if you're too open about it.
Hmm.
You know, that's not people
People in
don't
the
care
chat are
about that in
thinking that
reality.
you're Matthew
What we need is
North.
facts.
Hold on, Charles. People in the chat are thinking that you're Matthew North. I think. No, I'm with
Oh
Charles.
no, I'm not Matthew North
Yeah,
at
I'll
all. No,
do an update for
I
the
know his
people that
work is
join the
great. He
chat.
does good work on RMA, which is a new military psychological program. So
Okay, yeah.
I can
So
tell you though that
Neo-Bolshevik Zionist revolutionary.
there is a big part of Promise we have to talk about. It's regarding Dick Cheney's connection to this. So through Dick Cheney and Adnan Khashoggi. Okay, you can go on my page. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go to your
Thank
Twitter.
you. Okay. Thank you very much. If you go on my page and scroll down, there's a connections to Dick Cheney, because Dick Cheney is connected to Scooter Libby, and Scooter Libby was pardoned by Trump. Did you know that? No. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you go
Yeah,
on my page,
a lot of
Scooter
his
Libby
pardons
was
have
pardoned
been.
by Donald Trump. Nobody talks about that. Brendan certainly won't talk about it, or Cybele Edmonds won't talk about it. It's actually very disturbing because, I understand you're here, you give everybody a platform. That's your job. People need to talk about the things that I talk about that are obvious. You have things like Scooter Libby. Well, what is Scooter Libby's past? He is literally a blackmailed pervert, and he's connected to Dick Cheney and Promise.
And Roger Stone
Yeah, Roger
and
Stone.
all his
See,
blackmail
Richard
associations.
Armitage, who I have a document about, he actually was directly involved with Adnan Khashoggi, an arms dealer for the CIA and Mossad, and he was involved with the transfer of a Promise software to Adnan Khashoggi, an arms dealer that was involved with arming Chechen militants. See, and this was during the Chechen Russian setup when you have the Semyon Mogilevich front, which is Putin fighting the Dick Cheney front, which is basically just Adnan Khashoggi with the Promise software funding all these. See, because it's all a problem reaction solution thing. The problem is the Georgians, the reaction is Putin, and some sort of solution came in. So and you can go on my page. You'll see
Your
that
Twitter.
Dick Cheney is sorry about all the recent stuff. That's all stuff the new stuff. Right there is this Dick Cheney links, and it talks about how
I see it.
yeah, Dick Cheney links. It talks about I can link the articles to that. That's an article from a Dick Cheney associate talking about Mogilevich, and Armitage is the one who transferred Promise to Adnan Khashoggi. Adnan Khashoggi then funds Chechen militants. And the Promise software is directly connected to Dick Cheney through Richard Armitage, who was who was in his administration. And Trump pardoned Scooter Libby, who was directly connected to Richard Armitage and directly connected to Valerie Plame. And Valerie Plame was directly connected to to Dick Cheney and how they ousted her. She was a CIA operative that was undercover and had intelligence that was going to stop the Iraq War from happening. And she was outed by Richard Armitage and Scooter Libby. And Scooter Libby was sentenced and pardoned by Trump. So what we see is this continuation of the CIA. Certain parts of the CIA and the government are basically going against the neocons, and that's what we're seeing. Like Valerie Plame, she has people around her that are essentially trying to stop maybe a war with Iran or some sort.
She's the one that tweeted that all wars are with Iraq, an article from UNZ or UNZ.
Yeah, she said stuff about the Jews and how they're doing all the wars. That's obvious.
Right.
So basically, it's strange. All the people surrounding her and Richard Armitage and Dick Cheney are connected to Promise. And this is the thing. If you're connected to Promise, you're connected to the people who gave it away. And who gave it away? Robert Maxwell and Rafi Eaton, two KGB Mossad agents. So what we see here is that we see America's enemies being created by Israel. Israel created every single enemy we see today. And this goes even deeper.
And what enemies are you talking about? What enemies did Israel create?
Oh, they created China, they created Russia, the Soviet Union, they created the new Russia, the new Masonic Russia. They created they created Iran because what we see was that the Shah actually criticized Israel and Zionism in the United States in an interview before it happened. They set up everything. And see, the Shah was liberal and anti-communist and also anti-Israel to a degree, so they removed him and they replaced him with the Ayatollahs. Somebody did, Israel or CIA, whoever. But see, they created every single enemy we have today. They even created Saudi Arabia. The UK created Saudi Arabia. So everybody
Mhm.
created all these enemies, and it was Israel and the UK. They both created all these enemies, and they did it through things like promise, and they did it through things like Pollard, and promise, and they have
I just
they gave
hey
the
Charles, I just got
they gave the software Russia, the Russian mafia. Um, it was also used in the Los Alamos nuclear theft by Senator John Tower, who was responsible for that. So, pretty insane.
John Swin
Senator
from The
John
World
Tower,
Needs
yeah,
This Man.
you guys can look that up. But
Can you hear me?
John Swin, yeah, he's all go to him. Yes, John Swin's one of the most important people I'd say right now helping out. John Swin and
He
I'd
said he
say
says that Eaton was the
they're
guy
really
who
good
stole
right
the
now with
software from
Finkelstein.
Justice Department, who stole it from Bill Hamilton.
Yeah, see, Eden, Rafi Eden was the one who actually flew to the United States and stole got assets within the Justice Department to get him the software, and then Robert Maxwell was given this promise, and then he distributed promise to all of our allies and our enemies.
Mm-hmm.
So the PLA, the Russian mafia, which is basically the KGB, the Russian mafia.
It's
The
interesting.
Saudis got
Maxwell was a
one
media
with that was
mogul.
backdoored.
Hey, Charles. Yeah, Maxwell was a media mogul, kind of similar to Arnon Milchan, who was also an Israeli agent that was doing spying and smuggling and stealing of technology. So it's like almost like the Mossad in Israeli intelligence uses really rich billionaires to be their frontmen.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what they're doing. They blackmail all these rich people. All these rich billionaires are actually mostly all fake. They're all fake actually. Mark Zuckerberg, they're all connected to Russia and the CIA and Mossad. And see, this is why no one talks about this kind of scandal. It's because it connects it all. You will never hear. I'm telling you, making a challenge to SGT report. You will never hear him say or mention Robert Maxwell one time. Because why? It connects Trump and Hillary to Epstein and 9/11.
Did you hear
He'll
me on
never
it?
talk about promise.
Did
The
you
only
hear
people that will
me?
let me talk about promise is you.
Did you hear me with
You and other
SGT
people.
report? I was trying
Right.
to tell him that Trump is associated with Epstein also.
Say it one more time.
Did
He
you
is associated with Epstein, yeah.
Yeah, did you see in my last debate with SGT Report, which by the way just got censored on my YouTube channel?
I Yeah, I saw that. I gotta say, I'll give you an honest critique because critiques are good, and I enjoy any critique of myself. I enjoy it. I'm just gonna say that I believe that you should ask him about Robert Maxwell, and Robert Maxwell should be something that's talked about among all of us. Give it enough attention where you would give 9/11. Because see, we would mention 9/11 like it's nothing, but we never mention Robert Maxwell, and we think it really is important because it's an ongoing thing. Two reasons: it's ongoing, and it involves everything that everybody talks about. Literally, if you talk about Trump, if you ever talked about Clinton, this is what they're connected to that nobody has mentioned.
Mhm.
So if you want to be on the forefront, actually, you have to mention this. And I'm not saying that you are responsible for anybody. I'm sorry if I ever thought maybe anybody think that way. The reality heard about this because it's so particular that they are scared people will find out that it is ongoing. It's truly not. It's truly ongoing. You can look it up on the internet. Muckrock mentions how it's still ongoing. Muckrock is a FOIA agency. We have to connect. See, these are the people that wants us to connect to. Brendan always says, let's connect to people in these other circles, in these circles of forums and such. Well, this is perfect. If you go on my page, I'm trying to talk to people like Muckrock. When we talk to FOIA investigation agencies like Muckrock that are independent, we have to use objectivity. We have to make sure that we don't use any incitement or any anger or any sort of emotion that drives people away from this kind of information. You want people to be open, so your approach has to be perfect and perfect and in line just with I guess with what your the reality is. The reality is you have to be super professional in a way where you don't have any emotion when it comes to a lot of this information. I can't say, my opinion of Trump or Clinton. It doesn't matter at this point. What we know is that Robert Maxwell is important. It's ongoing, and nobody talks about it. And you will let me talk about it. That says something about you. That says that you're actually trustworthy, and that any skepticism that I had of you is actually, what it doesn't matter anymore because you allowed me the chance to talk about this. So that's why this is important. This could be used as a methodology. You can incorporate it into a methodology to say, okay, Robert Maxwell, you can say, why aren't you talking about it? You should talk about it. And if you don't, maybe that says something about you. So we will have to have an interview. That's that kind of thing. We should be approachable like that. So,
yeah, I promised you I'd have you on, and here you are. I was just doing some search just on Wikipedia. Maxwell's daughter, she had a romantic relationship with Epstein and then remained close after the breakup. So they were friends with benefits after the breakup too, maybe. And
yeah.
Oh, it said something else here. Oh, where was it? Maxwell has always denied any involvement in Epstein's crimes. In 2015, Maxwell rejected allegations that she has acted as a, quote, madam for Epstein and facilitated facilitated Prince Andrew's acts of sexual abuse. And, Mueller is investigating Roger Stone's connection to the madam in D.C. or New York right now, too.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, what we need is that, Brendan O'Connell, I know he had a falling out with many of you, but now he's coming back and saying, Jeremy's a good guy. He's okay as long as he keeps me away from Kevin Barrett or certain other people. I understand that. And
let's get into the Sabbatean Frankism. I don't want to talk about Brendan.
O'Connell is a good guy. He's coming back. Mm-hmm. He's saying okay, I didn't mean to offend anybody. Mm-hmm. So, and I'd like to say that he's right though when it comes to a lot of these strategies. We have to make friends with Muckrock. Muckrock is a FOIA request agency. They're getting so much information about Robert Maxwell. We have to support them. We have to support the reality, which is that Trump and this promise scandal is ongoing. If we focus on this, along with all the information we do, and use this as a side topic, it would become much more effective. Your ideas and everything would become much more effective because it would fit into this, and it would make sense. Mm-hmm. Promise, PTEC, BCCI. That's the connection between Saudi Arabia and the Russian mob and Israel. All three. I would say that's like the Trinity. That you have the Saudi Arabia, the Russian mob, and Israel. The trinity of corruption.
Charles, I would say that I can definitely see how Maxwell and Promise fit into the tech takeover, also parasitic relationship of Israel BCCI. And the United States, and it definitely fits into the big picture right there next to Talpiot 8200 and the tech takeover. The really parasiting off the host of America and stealing everything. So what's the quote with Netanyahu that will dry up and blow away
or something?
Yeah.
But see, it's in its own league though, because when you find out that PTEC is a derivative, it comes from something. PTEC meaning that it's smaller than something like a derivative. It's coming from Promise. Mm-hmm. All these things that are used in 9/11, BCCI, a bank connected to Saudi Arabia, 9/11. That's connected to Promise. Adnan Khashoggi, he's an arms dealer. It's all coming from a source. And that's what I mean. If we mention the source, like Robert Maxwell and Roy Cohn, those are sources. Where are they sources for? Donald Trump. That's what they're sources for. That's where they come. That's where Trump comes from. He comes from Roy Cohn. And see, where does Clinton come from? Robert Maxwell.
What's the Clinton connection to Maxwell?
What was that?
What is the Clinton-Maxwell connection?
Okay, the Clinton-Maxwell connection is the Rose Law Firm, and that's why Vince Foster is connected to Promise. And that's why nobody talks about something called Systematics IP and its connection to Hillary Clinton. And see, Hillary Clinton is connected directly to Robert Maxwell through Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And that's where her husband is connected to. They're both blackmailed by Ghislaine Maxwell and this KGB Mossad front. And see, Clinton's connected to 9/11 through PTEC, and the Rose Law Firm is connected to Vince Foster, who was suicided by Clinton.
How is the law firm connected again to Maxwell?
Rose Law Firm's connected to PTEC and Systematics IP, which is another derivative like company front of the Clintons.
And Rose
And they're
Law
basically,
Firm is where the Hillary Clinton worked.
yeah, no, Vince Foster and Hillary Clinton were involved with the Rose Law Firm, and that was connected to P-Tech and something called Systematics IP, which is another. It's like a company that used Promise, and see, they're all just derivatives. And see, you can it's modified every single. See, when you have a company, which is another word for a CIA, CIA front as a company. Oh, we have a company of agents. They will modify Promise in order to fit a certain set of circumstances that they are in.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're in China or if they're in Russia or if they're Iran and they're trying to sell arms to the MEK or they're selling arms to Al Nusra or wherever, they need to or certain sects of the jihad movement, they need Promise and they'll modify it. So they just change the name, Systematics IP, P-Tech, all these different names. It's just a modified Promise software, and the source is Promise and Robert Maxwell. See, that's the source. So
yeah, it definitely does connect a lot of dots with all the bad characters, the
yeah,
bad
it connects
actors.
Trump and Clinton together, and then it connects that to 9/11. See, and that's why I don't understand why Nexium is focused upon. Remember, it's sensationalism. That's why. See, this is a particularity. SGT report will not talk about Promise or Robert Maxwell, but he will talk about the Nexium cult, which is connected to Robert Maxwell. And why will he do that? Because it's a way for him. It's a way for him to sensationalize Epstein and
How
get
is
him
Nexium
everybody to
connected?
focus.
I'm sorry,
On
Charles.
this.
Charles, slow down. How is Nexium connected to Maxwell?
Well, see, I was saying that Nexium is connected to Maxwell through Epstein, but this is the problem. Nexium is less important, but it's still important. Robert Maxwell is more important than Nexium because Nexium is so sensationalized. See, Bronfman is a big player, but the biggest players are the ones involved in Promise in 9/11. That's the biggest players. Bronfman is a side player involved with the World Jewish Congress and the Russian mob also, but he's not one that was one of the largest players in 9/11. Like
What do you think it
P-Tech,
says that the Bronfmans, who I've always thought are like Rothschild front, one of the most powerful Jewish
they are
families in
Rothschild
America?
fronts, yep.
Yeah, well, so it seems like they're coming down. The sisters are coming
They are
down
coming
pretty
down,
big time.
definitely. But see, the whole Nexium thing, it's important, but it's less important than Robert Maxwell. Like we see, it's interesting. That's for sure. It's interesting, and I don't blame anybody for talking about it. But if you're going to talk about Nexium, it's good. You have to talk about Robert Maxwell because that's where it stems from. Remember, Epstein, Nexium, and Robert Maxwell. That's how it all connects.
Is Epstein connected to Nexium? I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was connected to Bronfman, and Bronfman was in the Little Black Book.
Okay.
Connected to Lolita Express. So Bronfman is connected to Epstein through the Little Black Book, and that's how he's connected to Robert Maxwell. See. And then that's how Promise is used as a way to manage human trafficking. It's modified in a way to manage specific cases of human trafficking. It's modified in a way to do anything you want, anything that you need it for. Arms trafficking, human trafficking, anything of that sort. So it's the all-purpose. It's the all-purpose and the first data utilizing software, information utilizing software that was made and then used and sold with backdoors everywhere. Backdoors that would help Israel and help only Israel and London. So it's very it's been used for nuclear trade, all this.
You think it's the biggest theft in American history?
It is the biggest theft in American history, correct. I would say that because P-Tech and all these firms that were used in 9/11, they were all from Promise. And without Promise, Promise is enabling everything. That's why I talk about it so much. It's enabled everything to happen.
How do you know that they all came from Promise?
What was that?
How do you know that all these companies came from Promise?
Because of their connection to things like Hillary Clinton and also through information that we got from FOIA requests. From Muckrock talks about how BCCI was connected to the Saudis and connected to Promise. So it's all been investigated, and these are a lot of the old links. Is P-Tech and BCCI's connection to Promise? That's a lot of the old stuff. The new stuff is the things that we don't know are what's going on. What is Promise still being used for? Is it being used for What arms trade is it being used for? If Adnan Khashoggi has Promise, one of the most famous arms traders in the world, how is Adnan Khashoggi still using it, or who is using Promise? And also, this is the strange thing I found out is maybe Semyon Mogilevich and Robert Maxwell and Mark Rich, all one of the biggest. These are some of the biggest players in the Jewish mob. Is Robert Maxwell, Mark Rich, and Semyon Mogilevich. I believe they're all connected through something called Alpha Bank, which is a bank connected to something called Mikhail Friedman, and Mikhail Friedman's connected to Alpha Bank. He's Putin's representative for Alpha Bank, like he's Putin's man for Alpha Bank in his government. And Alpha Bank is basically a criminal server that is the Mossad and the CIA and the Russian government all have taps in, and it's being used by Semyon Mogilevich, or was being used by Semyon Mogilevich. It was actually there was calls directly from Trump's tower to Semyon Mogilevich through Alpha Bank, and some believe that BCCI and Mark Rich are connected to Alpha Bank also. So that's less important because all these guys have already been exposed. So
who is Mark Rich?
You've
mentioned him a few times, but I don't know who Mark Rich is.
Say it one more time.
Mark Rich. Who is Mark Rich?
Mark Rich is one of the largest commodities traders in the world, connected to Glencore. And Glencore is connected to Wilbur Ross, and Wilbur Ross is connected to Trump through Glencore.
And Rothschilds.
Is connected to Rothschild and Glencore through Wilbur Ross. See? So this is why I was saying that there's representatives for everything in our government. Acosta, which is the labor department, is ran by Acosta, who is Trump's representative for the Epstein blackmail network. So Robert Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, they run their intelligence, and they control Trump through the labor department through Acosta. And Wilbur Ross, Mark Rich, and Putin, they control the department. And the Mnuchin, who is the Treasury, he's connected to George Soros, who has
That's where I heard Mark Rich. He got the pardon on the last day of office by the Clintons. Now that's I knew that name.
Yeah, it's crazy. Mnuchin is actually connected to George Soros, and this is what we do know also. Jared Kushner is actually connected to George Soros.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and George Soros is connected to Chabad Lubavitch. So that's the Sabbatean Frankist connection. See, that's what all Messianic Judaism is. The Sabbatean Frankism, because that all modern Judaism stems from Sabbatai Zevi, and he was the self-proclaimed Messiah of 1666 of the Jewish people. So all Judaism has been changed to fit that movement. It's a Messianic movement, and that's kind of like George Soros represents that. He represents that. He represents something called redemption through sin, which is a motto of the Frankists, which is that the more we sin, the faster Messiah comes. See, that's why all these bad things happen to people, is because there's more sin in the world, the Messiah comes faster to bring order, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they say. That's what Chabad Lubavitch is. Messianic Frankism. It's basically bring sin, order through sin, order through chaos. See, chaos is a sin, so we have to bring chaos. That's what they believe. And that's how, see, George Soros, Mnuchin and Jared Kushner. Well, that's because without chaos, you don't have a lot of this stuff. So, but we can go into if there's any other questions, Promise and Richard Armitage and all these.
Who is Richard Armitage?
It's really not that much, though.
Who is Richard Armitage?
Ask that again.
Who is Richard Armitage? That name you're saying? Richard
Armitage was in the administration of Dick Cheney. He was really close. I think it was chief of staff or something close. He was involved with something called Plamegate with Valerie Plame, who was the CIA operative uncovered, and who had her intel was going to stop the Iraq War. Well, she was uncovered by Dick Cheney, Armitage, and Scooter Libby, and Trump has pardoned Scooter Libby now. Scooter Libby and Richard Armitage were connected. Richard Armitage was connected to Promise and Adnan Khashoggi. See, I've said this before. Adnan connected to the Promise thing with Richard Armitage, and I have the document, the Justice Department document, on my Twitter. How it's I mean, everything is here to be shown, but anyone seems to know about this. I'm glad that you took the time to talk about this with me. I mean, that's why I think it's very trustworthy of you. I think, honestly, I owe you a lot of respect because not many people will talk about this. I want Brendan to talk about in his comments. Okay, I'll take that credit.
Didn't Brendan say that like he wanted you to write him an article or to give him a presentation or something like that?
I was going. Well, see, I can never find out where I heard that from. I couldn't find any reference to him asking me that. I've wanted to have an interview with Brendan or No Time regarding this and its connection to everything else, but I couldn't find anybody to talk about this. And so it's crazy because to me, this is the final circle, the last circle of the book that was written, of the last circle, because this is the connection that connects Clinton to Trump, the right to the left, or the crony left and the crony right to one another. It connects everything, 9/11 to Trump and Hillary Clinton. And to me, it's almost like a coincidence that nobody would talk about this. Of course nobody talks about this because it's the last circle. It's the last thing that nobody talks about. Of course, right? Of course no one's going to talk about this.
Well, I would say that it's a piece of the puzzle, but
who really notice, and they have to speak up. I have to speak up. I have to come on this show and do it, say this. It's up to me. See, when nobody else talks about this, it's up to me. It's up to the people who notice and take notice. I have to come out and say something. If I don't, that's on me. It's my problem once I don't say anything about it. I have to be there when I don't hear about it, to provide the public with some sort of information regarding Robert Maxwell. SGT report won't do it. So Brendan wasn't doing it for a long time. I had to bring it up. So it's very honorable and trustworthy that you bring me on to talk about this specific issue. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There may be something I'm missing.
You're very passionate about it, so I wanted to give you the platform and hear what you have to say to learn. So let's move on back to the Sabbatean Frankist. Is this where like the Messianic movement came out of and Chabad Lubavitch came out of?
Definitely. And everything you talk about plays directly into this, is directly connected to all this. And this is like basically the final circle of the Messianic movement. You talk about, Chabad Lubavitch and the origins of the modern Zionist movement, but where did the modern Zionist movement come from, right? It came from where Judaism was changed fundamentally. The fundamentals of Judaism, that's where it comes from. And that was altered in the 1600s by a self-proclaimed Messiah of Judaism named Sabbatai Zevi. And then after he died, another man rose up and became the second Messiah named Jacob Frank. He was the second Messiah. So we have to understand, first Messiah, Sabbatai Zevi, 1666. Second Messiah was Jacob Frank. And Jacob Frank, Jacob Frank was he was the one who was a pervert and a degenerate and had massive orgies. So he was the redemption through sin. The one with Sabbatai Zevi, who through his teachings they created what modern Judaism is today through the Zohar and the Talmud, both created out of this, modified by this also to become worse. So this event made Judaism worse overall than it was. So it modified Judaism to a point where recognizable from the Old Testament, and now it's become a interpersonal, undisclosed. See, Judaism is about secrecy. Is that we don't like secrecy, and religions nowadays should not be secretive.
Yeah.
But this is a secret religion.
Yeah, I heard that Chabad has been very secret. Chabad Lubavitch is very secret. Overrepresented in the world. It's overrepresented about, and this is where the Chabad Lubavitch comes from. People they wonder, where's Chabad Lubavitch come from, right? Everybody says, well, everybody's talking about Chabad Lubavitch. Where does it come from? It comes from Messianic Judaism, which comes from Sabbatai Zevi and Jacob Frank, two degenerates and two people who are perverts and probably rapists. So these men were sick.
You know, these were dictators. These were the dictators of Judaism. These were the dictators of the old times, and they were revered by Judax,
They were
by Jews,
criticized.
by these, yeah.
It says I have just it's up on the Wikipedia. Sabbateans and early Hasidism, seeds of the Hasidic movement within the Sabbatean movement. So the Jews are even saying that that's where it came from. And where was it? Shoot.
See, and left wing and right wing Jews both represent Sabbatean Frankism. Frank and Sabbatai Zevi. See, that's the thing. It doesn't matter if you're left or right. They both have foundings in this. So of course we have to deal with the right first, which is more violent and militant, and then deal with the left. So the left requires re-education with facts, and the right requires more of a disabling. We have to disable the militant Zionists because they have weapons of mass destruction.
So this is where the Messianic movement started also. Back in the 1600s when this was happening, critics of Hasidism or Hasidics, they said it was a Messianic sect. And Sabbatai Zevi, Jacob Frank, and then now like these kind of morphed into the Rebbe's.
Yeah, the Rebbe's, and now it's like a council of people. It's an oligarchy now. So it transformed into a because messianic, any sort of messianic cult, they always revert back to councils that like sort of bring about the needed changes to have the messianic age, right? You need to have like a council of elders, you know, to basically guide us into the messianic age. That's what it's all about. And it's strange though, see, because George Soros is always talked about by the right wing and the left wing, but he's never mentioned that he's connected to Jared Kushner, right wing Zionist, right? So that's left and right, communist Zionism coming together. You know, it's coming together, and that's what Antifa is. I mean, it's George Soros and Rothschild. Well, George Soros and Jared Kushner. There you go. That's what Antifa is. But that's what, you know. Of course, Infowars as a strat for intelligence outlet. We can't expect Infowars to talk about anything. We should not engage Infowars. This is the problem with Brendan O'Connell. You shouldn't really engage Infowars anymore. There's no point, because if it's an intelligence front, how do we know are active anymore? How do we know that it's worth it putting our credibility online, even mentioning him anymore? You know, we can mention him, but not trying to rebuild any sort of engagement, I think, is pointless. They are data mining. Alex Jones is taking our information. We need to watch out. We need to stop tagging him. We need to stop tagging Pachinik. We need to stop acting like they're looking at us. They're data mining us. They're finding better ways of modifying their how they outreach to the public, modifying that so that they won't find out things like this, Robert Maxwell, while they'll just fall into the hands of SGT report and Jerome Corsi and you know, the second wave of Alex Jones control opposition. You know, they're just going to fall into that, and that's the problem. We can't let people fall into, you know, Titus Frost, all these people who don't talk about Robert Maxwell, but they'll talk about Nexium.
Matthew North said in the chat that he has a few old videos on these topics.
Yeah, see, this all connects into everything. See, Christopher Story talked about the perestroika deception's connection to promise. Christopher Story is very brilliant. I don't agree with everything he talks about, but Christopher Story is great. I have a connection to basically everybody you can think of on YouTube at this point, because I care about this. I think it's worth attention. I think it'll help people understand it. That's the thing here. This helped me understand. This helped clarify it all. That's when I truly knew I had to spread that understanding. Okay, that I understood what Robert Maxwell really was. He was a between everything that we've ever understood. If you ever understood 9/11, you'll understand promise. It's a backdoor. It's a insider trading software. If you think of AIG and the World Trade Center 7, you're thinking of the
Mercer.
software.
How about
you're thinking
Mercer?
Of the software and the funds that were moved around. You know, all of that. That is connected to promise.
Robert Mercer and his trading.
Oh,
his trading
yeah.
programs.
I'm sorry. We did not get to mention Robert Mercer and Eric Prince. My bad. Yeah, see, Joseph wanted me to talk about the DHS and how DHS is basically running psyops, and it's basically what the Phoenix program. The Phoenix program has now been designated to be used as a domestic program. It's now be redesignated. Eric Prince is basically redesignating the Phoenix program domestically to domestic front to take to, and then that's why we're seeing Antifa. That's why we're seeing the uplifting of both sides of militants is because we are going to see DHS agency go basically start to go the Phoenix program. It's going to start to get put domestic, and also we're going to start seeing more terrorist attacks in Europe, and we're going to see we're going to see an establishment of a DHS like agency. What the DHS is made for is psychological warfare and also data mining and data research and data analysts, and that's all it is. It's not people going around killing. There's no such thing as Mossad hit squads, and if they are Mossad hit squads, it's more of like it's very undisclosed. It's something we'll never really hear about because it's kind of like SEAL Team 6 for Mossad. They're the assassination teams, right?
Black Cube.
What
we heard
I'm talking
about
about is data analysts. I'm talking about DHS, Promise. I'm talking about backdoors into everything, looking straight through your camera at your face at night. Anything that you can imagine, and that's what DHS is there for. DHS is like is basically a backdoor. It's a backdoor into everything, and it's also ran by Israel, and it's used to create psychological operations. Things like Las Vegas, things like Parkland, all those things are connected to Roy Cohn and what's his name, and Stone, Roger Stone. Yeah. Roger Stone's connected to the sheriff Israel of Parkland, Florida, and that's how we know that it's a psychological operation. Is that it's connected directly to Roy Cohn, and that's where the Russian mob is running agents out of Florida. And if they don't want us to know, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is connected to the Russian mafia, and she's also connected to Roger Stone through Sheriff Epstein.
How about Mega Group?
Sheldon Adelson. Sheldon Adelson was running the psychological operation in Las Vegas, who I can verify that nobody died because I cannot find one piece of footage or one photo with a dead body in a bullet wound. Literally, I found out that it was connected to the Pulse nightclub shooting, and it's something called crisis management. Crisis management is literally what we're dealing with. We have to understand those two words: crisis management, crisis simulation. And they're ran out of things like the DHS, and they're ran by billionaires. Again, remember you said that billionaires represent key points of blackmail? That's what we're seeing. The DHS and Israeli Mossad will go to people like Sheldon Adelson, Roger Stone, Epstein, Steve Bannon. They're all power players, and they're all sent as like emissaries, diplomats in the underground world, of backdoor connections. That's what it's all about, is like sending emissaries. So you'll have like Sheldon Adelson. He'll act as like the go-between between Trump and Israel for a false flag.
Sheldon Adelson has the school of entrepreneurship, like right across from Israeli
and right after
intelligence.
The Las Vegas shooting, guess what happened? Trump was literally talking to Adelson hours afterwards. They visited each other, talked about buying more security. See, because we don't have control over the federal government anymore. We don't have control over our own police forces because our police forces are getting stand downs. See, this is why the police don't matter, why we shouldn't protest them. When we can protest what they do wrong, we can protest people violating the Constitution, but we shouldn't just go and scream at the police because they have no idea what's going on. We need to protest a law, and we need to protest like things like Promise that are ongoing, things like Robert Maxwell, things like crisis management and crisis simulations through Department of Homeland Security, which is going to be created in Europe, and then you're going to have psychological operations all ran out of DHS, a DHS-like agency in Europe, and that's what it's all about. It's establishing like a Hollywood over your military, like almost like a military Hollywood. That's what we're seeing. Is the Phoenix program is going to be like a military Hollywood set up in the Pentagon. They want one for Europe, they want one for America, and they're setting them up everywhere. And they're almost like theaters for every single different operations. And they are complex. They're crisis simulations, things like the Pulse nightclub shooting. they can all be connected to the FBI stand downs. They call them stand downs. They're really stand downs. If they were real stand downs, then someone would be in trouble. See, but no one ever gets in trouble from a quote unquote FBI stand down. Oh, the FBI didn't investigate somebody. It's always the fact that nobody usually dies, and if someone does die, it was because some rare incident. But if you can't prove someone died, and if you can't prove someone didn't die, then just expose you have to expose the obvious like discrepancies. So it's not. See, I know that certain people. I know that people didn't die in certain ones. I don't know if anybody died in certain ones or not. So like, the certain shootings, I don't know if anybody died or not. So I can't make that conclusion. But I can tell you for a fact that there's no evidence for Parkland or the Las Vegas, and they happen to be connected to Trump, and they happen to be connected to the two, to Trump, and I can guarantee that nobody died in those, but I don't know if other people died in other ones. See, that's not important. What we know, what's important is reality. Reality is what we are dealing with now, which is Trump, Parkland, Sheldon Adelson, Robert Maxwell. That's what we're dealing with now, and that's why we shouldn't talk about things like Clinton anymore. Clinton's irrelevant. Clinton is running Trump through Epstein and Robert Maxwell's legacy. That's what's running Trump. That's why we don't need to fixate on things like false flags. We don't need to fixate on them. We can mention them. We don't need to fixate on that. We don't need to fixate on Nexium. We don't need to fixate on things that
a lot of the
important.
false flags I don't even like to cover because it's so hard for people
you'll get
to wake up
flag.
to it.
It's really easy. It's really easy to be targeted because of it. That's why it's better to focus on things like Robert Maxwell, on Sheldon Ellison, who are all connected to false flags. See, so covering the false flags themselves are irrelevant. Focusing on the connections is more relevant because it exposes the false flags and who set them up. And that's why when we talk about Robert Maxwell, Promise, George Soros' connection to Kushner through all these loans, that's been known for a long time.
Yeah, that's
when
what I was gonna say. I like to get into the.
Important.
I like to get into the information that like we can prove to people
Yeah,
instead of
exactly,
get into
right.
the.
And that's why I'm kind of getting here is that in the very end, that's why I focus on these connections now. I don't really focus
Because you don't want to get anything wrong.
Yeah, I'll mention them.
You don't want to get anything wrong, or else all the stuff that you did get right will be dismissed with the stuff you got wrong.
Exactly, and that's why if you see discrepancies, then you can mention that, but don't fixate upon it. Don't only focus on that, and don't talk about things that you can't prove. If there's correlations, okay, mention the correlations. I'll post the Washington Examiner article about, Trump happened to meet with Edelson right after the false flag in Las Vegas. Okay, see, I'm mentioning correlating information, but I'm not just alluding to it. I'm not just saying, hey, nobody died. See, you don't want to allude to like, you can allude you can post information and mention it, but you don't want to keep on focusing on it, fixating on it. There's no point. Focus on the connections. Sheldon Addison's connected to the KGB.
Let's bring it back to Sabbatean Frankism. I want to hear some more on that. So this idea that they have to sin to bring back the Messiah. What do you think about Kushner being the Moshiach and the Messiah?
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I mean, he had the apartment building that was 666, the 1.8 billion. And Charles Kushner is connected to 9/11. We know that for a fact. Charles Kushner is connected to 9/11, and it's crazy how we can have someone connected to 9/11 in the White House, and he's connected to George Soros. And see, George Soros bailed out Trump in Chicago, 2003, I think. And that is like that is so long ago. So it's strange. I believe it's redemption through sin. They believe that they are redeemed as a people. The Jews get redeemed, and also the Goyims get redeemed.
Like the more Sodom and Gomorrah they get, the faster the temple will be built and the Messiah will come.
That's exactly what they're saying, and that's how the LGBT and all these different degeneration, things that degenerate our integrity. So when you have integrity, you have you have a good systematic integrity. Everything's working well. So when you have, say, too much of a promotion of homosexuality, when you put things like fluoride in the water, when you do the kind of things, what you cause is integrity of systems to become degraded. You have the human system, which you have the pineal gland, you have different parts of the human brain, we have different parts of the world, different parts of systems that we need intact, and they are being degraded systematically using a method, um, so that they can bring about a specific change, a specific age, the age of course, they call this is what they call it, the age of Aquarius. They call it, oh, the age of the Mosaic. That's what it's about. It's about the bring about the one world order out of
When the age
Jerusalem.
of the
That's what
Gentiles is
communitarianism
over.
connects to. See, it's the solution. So see, the problem is the communists. The reaction is the fascists, and or not just the fascists. The reaction is any sort of corporate body, any sort of like not corporate body, but like um any sort of like reactionary thing, like over reactionaries, like ultra nationalists that are like unknowledgeable. That's the reaction, and the solution is communitarianism, is social democracy and liberalism. People don't remember that liberalism and social democracy are Masonic, and they are not rightful. See, they were caused by something. You don't not want to believe in something that's caused by something else. You want to believe in something that's real,
Are
something
you
that's organic.
religious?
You know,
What's your religion?
I'm a Christian, but I believe more in the Old Testament. I'm actually non-practicing because I don't know as much script. I don't know what is untampered script or not, but biblical script. So I actually am non-practicing at this point. So I'm really a lot of my time is going into investigation and research.
Hmm.
So I'm a non-practicing Christian. But I do not believe in Mormonism or all these denominations that were founded by one man or a group of individuals. What we need is something that is legible, something that is not just formed from one person. When you have something that's formed from one person and you have a total belief in it, you have a lack of integrity. I mean, you're focusing on one person. That one person is flawed. Every single person in the world is flawed. It is a fact. We can talk about Aristotle and the Oracle of Delphi. I mean, it literally goes back to the foundings of thought and belief and philosophy, and how if you question yourself first, you learn. And through the process of learning, you become the smartest because you're able to admit your own faults, able to admit your own inadequacy, and you're able to question yourself. You're able to defeat your own ego, and that's the problem with all these new religions. Anything that's been modified, it's all things that are really based upon one man, like Sabbatai Zevi, the Mormons, Scientology, all the new sects of Christianity.
So you're not
Um,
into like hero worship or like
Hero worship,
messiahs,
and this is the thing. Protestants, I like
saviors. You're
Protestants.
not ready
Martin
for a
Luther's
savior.
okay, but why do we have to focus on Martin Luther? He's one man. He is a flawed individual. He is not perfect. God did not make any man perfect. Okay, it's impossible. So I don't understand why we have to treat individuals unquestionable. They're not unquestionable. Ignatius Loyola. He is a genocidal Spanish Jew. The Jesuits who created the Jesuits, and this is not these are not good people. These are dictators. These are evil people, Kabbalistic evil dictators.
Hmm.
And so when you say, okay, and I'm not saying Martin Luther is at all. I'm saying Ignatius Loyola is. I'm saying that when you make certain individuals unquestionable, it's not right. It's the anti-integrity thing. Do you want nepotism, which is against integrity? It's against systems. Having promoting healthy systems for humans, right? For not just humans. I don't believe in humanism, but for our species and for our races and for our ethnicities and our countries. Do we want healthy systems? Of course we do, right? So why would we focus on one person? Nepotism. One grand individual. That is flawed. It's flawed because humans are a system themselves, and they require cohesion amongst one another. And if you really look at what the Jews have done since the day of their inception, they have eroded cohesion, natural cohesion that has existed between humans. You have the slave trade by Columbus, who was also a Spanish Jew. I mean, you have the slave trade by the KKK and Rothschild's connection to the KKK through the ADL. Germany goes into all this. See, that is all That's all.
Who goes into
It's
this? Jeremy Roth
Yeah,
Kushel?
Germany goes into how the KKK is connected to the ADL and Rothschild. So it's all like it all goes back. No, no individual should not stop questioning themselves. When you question yourselves, um
Hmm.
you become more knowledgeable. It's the only way to
Yeah,
for
always
humans
try
to
to
go
prove
forward is
what
to
you
question
believe
ourselves.
wrong. I'll always
But
try to seek information to try to prove what you believe wrong, and that way
oh
you
yeah,
can
Germany, yeah, but
correct
yeah,
it.
you can look at Germany's videos about the ADL and the KKK's connection to Rothschild and Albert Pike. Yeah, it's all there. But
Who are you talking
that's
about? Who?
how
What? Jeremy?
Germany, yeah, Germany and the antidote. They've talked
Okay, the
about,
antidote. Jeremy
um,
Roth Kushel and Greg
yeah, they've
McCarran.
talked about how the KKK is an output of Rothschild.
Hmm.
Yeah, they talked about the ADL's connection to the KKK and such. But see, so that's why I say we can't stop questioning ourselves. Of course, we can't question everything to a degree, but we can question the obvious. We can question individuals. Um,
So, I want to get a little bit more to the Frankists. Are there still Frankists? Did the Frankists like turn
oh
into
yeah,
like
definitely. It's all about
who do the
also
Frankists
it's all about.
control?
See, in Islam, there's that people always refer to the jihad thing where people will become like a chameleon and they'll forget their loyalty for a little bit to hide themselves.
Hmm.
Well, that's what this kind of is. It's basically hiding your identity for a higher order. It's a hidden oaths, taking hidden oaths and taking hidden rights. And that's what it's about. Is that
Were they
which
trying
is
to like go to Israel and rebuild the temple back then in the
yeah.
1600s?
Well, do you want an example of what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
would be like the Donme. The Donme were Turkish, um, Ashkenazi,
Hmm.
and this Ashkenazim essentially murdered and killed all the Armenian Christians who had been around since the Assyrian time, and they're
Hmm.
like old, ancient people.
The Armenian
And they were all,
genocide that's
yeah,
denied.
slaughtered.
Yeah.
They were all slaughtered by Jews, actually.
I wonder when it'll be
Ashkenazim.
illegal to deny Holodomor. I'm probably pronouncing that one wrong. Sorry, guys.
Holodomor, you got it.
And what was the other one you're just talking? Oh, the Armenian genocide. Yeah, I wonder when it'll be
Yeah, that was
illegal
done
to
by
question
Donme,
those.
and nobody talks about Donme, which is the Ashkenazim. It's basically the Ashkenazim. See, the Ashkenazim are Turkish. They come from Turkish roots in the Caucasus region. That's where Turkic people kind of
Hmm.
come from. Is the regions near the Caucasus and in Asia, in the Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, around there. And they went through the Caucasus region. That's where Ashkenazim come from. That's where the Donme comes from. And the Donme, they are what the Sabbatean Frankists are. They are like the secularists, or they're also like degenerates and also liberals. See, liberalism is used by people like the Don May. Social democrats are used by Zionists in order to facilitate world revolution. So when you have social democrats and liberals creating gay rights, normalizing pedophilia, and also weakening the integrity of human systems. So human systems being things like systems like Christianity, systems like nationalism, things like labor, separating labor from personal freedoms. We should never have done that. Labor should have always been something that is away from gay rights. Labor should never have been connected to gay rights or any personal freedoms. Labor should have always been connected to nationalism. It should have always been connected to the worker and to a higher, well, not Prussian. I don't want to believe in Prussian nationalism. That's not what I'm about. I'm trying to say that we have to preserve the integrity in real and honest things and like healthy things. Christianity had some healthy things in it, and that's what a lot of the workers were all Christians. And now you have all the unions who are anti-Christian, or they're not real Christians, they're just non-practicing or whatever. And so the problem is they've created this conundrum where social democracy, liberalism, is now more important than nationalism, nationalistic and labor. Now you can't connect labor with nationalism. Now you can't disconnect labor from personal rights.
Hmm.
Now gay rights and whatever you want to do, that's connected to redemption through sin. That's connected to labor now. Now we cannot separate you know, labor, which is not just it's not just legitimate. It's also labor is something that makes you feel dignified. It gives you dignity. All these different things, and they want to connect dignity to something immoral, something that's not real, something that's inorganic, something like liberalism and social democracy, which only drives reactionaries. That's what it's always been about, is driving reactionaries, driving people like Jerome Corsi, driving people like SGT Report to be the reactionaries, to be the people who won't go the full circle. See, and then the solution is something that is going to be easily obtainable.
You
Now
think
that
the
they have the
solution is talking
reactionaries in
about?
place,
You
now
think,
they can just create a solution like
Charles?
communitarianism.
You think that exposing the Sabbateans and the Frankists, you think that is that important to the history of
It
where
is.
it came from, or is
It
it
is
just
important because
more
that's the
important
history of Judaism. If we don't understand the history
Yeah.
of Judaism, we won't understand why the messianic movement, why it's dangerous. It's dangerous because it has a history of dictatorship
Uh-huh.
within its own sect,
Oh yeah.
which is Sabbatai and Jacob Frank. Those are dictators. They are Judaic dictators,
And
and they are.
it says that they're followers of an ancient religion in Babylonia. So is this like the Babylonian
You can
Talmud?
compare it to an ideology. See, when does a religious cult become an ideology? And this is the problem: is that we have these cults and we have ideologies and all these a lot of things that are not organic or real. How do we separate? How do we know which one's which? I think it's an ideology at this point. I think it's a cult and ideology. You know, so it's pretty scary, and that's
I
why it's important though we talk about it because it's the origins
Yeah.
of the threat. See, if you have a threat, and I also talked about weaponized threat assessments. When you have things like Christopher Steele, who is connected to Finkelstein, thanks to Jeremy Roth Koshel at the Antidote, or talk about the Finkelstein's connection to Christopher Steele and the Christopher Steele dossier and why it's a psyop. Well, you have things that I call them weaponized threat assessments. A threat assessment is simply identifying something that poses a threat to you. It's a human instinct that we all have, except that we're all made to, we don't do it anymore. We don't create honest threat assessments anymore because we're made to believe that there's no threat in the world. See, when there's no threat in the world, there's no reason to have a threat assessment or a truthful, honest threat assessment. But now there is, because see, we know there's a threat. So what they do is they create fake threat assessments, like the Christopher Steele dossier. They basically say, look, we are assessing the quote unquote threat to America, the threat to you. And they'll say, okay, we know what it is. It's only Putin and Russia. That's the only threat in the world. They mischaracterize the threat in order to save their own credibility. And that's the problem. We have to create our own threat assessments with the intelligence we have, and the intelligence that they obviously don't have.
Hey,
And
the people in the chat are asking you if you're Jewish.
I'm actually not Jewish at all. No, I'm Hispanic. I'll admit I'm not a white person because I'll show my face at some point. I'm actually a Hispanic person, but I also believe in European rights. You know, I'm anti-experimentation.
And you live in America,
people.
right? You live in the United States?
I do. I live in Arizona. Yes.
Arizona, okay. And how old are you?
Anti-experiment.
How old
I'm
are
pro-European rights, pro-European determination within Europe.
How old are you?
Anti-Zionism. I'm 21.
21.
Currently.
Okay, great. And when did you start waking up and getting into studying this type
Well,
of
it
information?
all started with me wanting to know exactly what 9/11 was, every part of it. And through that, I went through Israel, and then I ended up with Jeffrey Epstein and then Robert Maxwell. And through Robert Maxwell, I understand every single bit of 9/11. And through Robert Maxwell, I understand where it all came from and how it enabled everything. Enabling factors is one of the biggest importances of everything we talk about, because you cannot have something without something enabling it. That's the whole nature of the universe. You know, when you cause an effect, enabling an effect. That effect being, the Iraq War. You know, it could be any effect, a subsequent effect of something, right? Of 9/11, a promise. You know, so 9/11 is a subsequent effect of promisey. So certain things enable certain things, of course, and it's very important. And that's why I say enabling factors. You know, different convergence factors like promise. You know, you have Epstein. You know, Dick Cheney.
How old were you when you got into this info?
Connected to one thing, right? That's convergence.
Were you into this, researching this type of thing when you were in high school?
I actually was in late high school, around junior year. And to me, it was more murky because what happened was that the election was such a successful intelligence operation against the populace that nobody could have a scope of it. And until recently, which I'd say is 2017, that's when the people on the internet, people actually started to arise on the internet to find out what happened. And what we understand now is that it was one of the most successful intelligence operations in human history. Was the Trump election? It was one of the most successful intelligence operations ever to happen on U.S. soil, and it was done by Russia, CIA, and the Mossad. Three things. So it's of course enabling. We have enablers. When we talk about domestic abuse or you talk about a crime, we have someone enabling crime. Who is doing that? It's Israel. We have people having back doors enabling crime. Weird. See, the problem is we have not applied investigative techniques, techniques that investigators use. We don't apply those to this information. That's the problem. We don't investigate it. We're researching it. That's good, but we also need people to investigate it. We need people to go and to like.
I had a message in the chat from John Swin. The world needs this man, who I'm trying to get on to get into some of his research. But he mentioned John Towers' relationship to promise, I think. Or is it Maxwell?
Oh yeah, that's
John
definitely
Towers
important. Thank you very much, John. John is probably one of the most important people regarding this information. He creates great infographics. Yes, Senator John Tower was connected to he's connected to New Mexico, and New Mexico is the place where you had a nuclear theft by China called the Los Alamos nuclear theft, and some people say that it was done using promise. And the person running the FBI at the time, I think it was Comey or someone near Comey, or it was a directly. No, it was the CIA director. His name was it was the CIA director under Bush Senior and under Bush, I think, or under Bill Clinton, and he said that the theft of the Los Alamos nuclear information was like Mossad. He said that, and he said it was like Mossad, and this was he was the CIA director under Bush, and I forgot his name. He also he said it was like Mossad, and so this was the nuclear theft of Los Alamos, and this is how Bill Richardson is also connected to the Mossad and Promise, is through he was the governor of New Mexico at the time of the nuclear theft, and Senator John Tower was involved with the Promise software, said to have been used in that theft, and it would make sense that Israel would help China with, or Israel provided the PLA with a Promise derivative with no backdoor. See, that's the whole strange thing about Robert Maxwell distributing derivatives of Promise. He backdoored all of the US's allies, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Afghanistan. All the U.S. allies got a backdoor except Russia, China, and Israel. That's the strange thing about it. Is that, and this is where we connect, Stalin with Robert Maxwell, is that Stalin helped create, according to new diaries in the New York University education, they have said that Stalin has diaries regarding the creation of Israel, and Robert Maxwell actually tried, according to the book Israel Super Spy, Robert Maxwell tried to stop the collapse of the USSR, single-handedly tried to do it. And he was not killed by the Russians. He was killed by Israel because he was getting too loud. He's becoming too much of a dictator himself.
People in the chat are asking who we're talking with again. I got his Twitter up on the screen. It's Truthful Resistance at Zoro Aria 11. What is Zoro Aria?
Zoro area, it just means it's like the bull area. It's basically saying like, when they call it a bull market on the stock market, they're talking about a bull market. They're referring to Molech. They're referring to the Canaanite god, who was a bull, and they would put people in the bull and kill them. It was just about sacrifice, human sacrifice.
And so I decided your YouTube is Neo-Bolshevik Zionist Revolutionary. Your YouTube is Neo-Bolshevik Zionist Revolutionary.
Yep, that's what. It's a description of basically what I believe this group is. So.
So
And
what new Bolsheviks, Zionists, revolutionaries?
basically, yeah.
People are going to
But
think
yeah,
that's what you are.
no, I know. I thought, well, this is too accurate. People are going to think I am this. But I'm trying to be very accurate so we get a lot of things over with. I feel like our progress is being stalled by things that we don't need to like worry about, like Nexium, by like interpersonal feuds that we have. Like, just for instance, the Chris Dorsey No More News feud. That's something that should have never happened because it was never important. What's important is Robert Maxwell and Promise and P-Tech and BCCI coming from. See, and
Yeah.
Bolin is right. Christopher Bolin, his research, all of everything he says is right. But the problem is that I just can't find. It's like the last circle, right? He doesn't mention Promise because he doesn't know about it. He doesn't know that it's important. And so I'm like trying to outreach to everybody who has never talked about it. I know everybody hasn't. Brendan has barely
Have
talked
you
about
made a
it. So
video or
me
put
and
out an
John are
article?
helping people. We're helping people like Bolin, like Brendan, to get the last circle. See this Promise connection.
Just a little advice. I don't think that trolling and like threatening and challenging people on Twitter is the best way to get them to talk about
No, I
things.
know, man. I know. I was really frustrated at the time because I felt like Fitz also was taken off Twitter for a little bit, and I
Fitz
felt
Informer.
like I was being. Go ahead.
The Fitzgerald Informer or Fitz Informer?
Yeah, yeah, Fitz Informer. He was taken off Twitter, and that's when I went on my tirade. And my tirade, of course, was there was no threat. My tirade was according to it. I had challenges, and yes, I will admit my challenges. My vocal pattern was when I said all this. It sounded in a way. It sounded to be aggressive, and I'm sorry about that. I
The
was
all
actually
caps too.
very
You,
nervous.
you should. Yeah, I know. I get nervous too. I hear you, man. I also
I won't be doing that again, though. Of course,
I
I
can
learned
get
from
out of
that.
breath when I start ranting about this stuff too. I'm sure people on my channel have noticed. I lose
Yeah.
control of my voice and everything. But also the all caps too. A lot of people that comes off not the most
Yeah,
persuasive.
I'm yelling. No, I just try to make it seem like it's easier to read. Sometimes I feel like people like have a
That's
trouble
true. I do
reading
it
things.
sometimes too, so it stands out. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's why I say like I try to scream when it comes to Promise. I'm trying to get people to really get it. I mean,
Mhm.
I focus on this because I feel like it's beneficial to you, to me. It's beneficial to us as a general uncentralized group of people because people like SGT Report, Jerome Corsi, they all this is the thing that they cannot stand. They cannot stand this.
Are the police at your house? I think Maxwell's daughter sent her hitman after you. Are you there?
Oh no, yeah, I'm there. Sorry. Yeah, this is why it's important is because SGT Report, people who haven't talked about this, they fear us coming to the conclusion that yes, it's all connected. It's
I
been
don't
connected from
think
the very
SGT
start,
knows
and
about
it's
that.
been.
SGT is not covering this info up. He just doesn't know about it.
No, I know,
I
I
got
know,
a
I know.
couple.
I'm not
Let
saying
me read
I'm
my
not
super
alluding to
chats.
that. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
he hasn't talked about it. Jerome
Mhm.
Corsi hasn't talked about it. No, but none of these people.
Well,
And this is the thing about the
has
SGT Report. It's
has
weird
anybody
because
talked about
he
it?
used to
Like, have
be.
you made a video or an article? Like, that's one way to put out some hardcore
Oh
information
no,
and then
yeah,
people will see
I put
it.
out
And,
articles before. Like I've said, SGT Report doesn't talk about Robert Maxwell or Promise and all this. Like I've done it, but then he doesn't respond. And that's the
but
thing.
here,
You have
listen. Let me
responded.
tell you,
I've had
Charles. Charles,
everybody
let me
has
tell you.
responded except certain people.
Charles, let me tell you, when people do this to me, they go, Adam's gatekeeping. He's not talking about this, and it's something I've never heard of, and it's just like kind of their pet peeve thing that they want to talk about. So you got to understand when you're coming at people, don't always assume that they're covering something up that they might not know about.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not either. But there's been times where you have contacted me about something I've asked you cover. Asked he interest. Every single person I've discussed has shown interest. Brendan has shown immediate interest. And this thing, I'm not saying the SGT report is control opposition because I don't know for sure. It would require admission of guilt. But I am suspicious of him because of his affiliation with Jerome Corsi. Like he used to be heavily involved with him, and he used to do multiple interviews with him. And
He told me
I'm not
he's
sure.
done one interview. I heard he did one interview. That's what he told me.
Oh no, he did more than one. He in the past he did around deleted most of them because people started questioning him.
Mm.
And but this is
I
the
got
thing.
a couple super
My
chats
problem
I
is that
want to
he
read
just
real quick.
I won't talk too much about SGT report, but my problem is that he won't expose Trump entirely. And he thinks that, of course, Trump is not controlled, and he thinks the Q thing is not controlled. And he won't talk about the things that we all talk about, and he won't give us the credibility that we all deserve because you, me, Brendan, all of us, we spend so much time. We spend thousands of hours trying to do this. And then we have people like him who have the most subs, and they seem to not care about this information. If he truly cared, I think he would have approached us about me, Brendan. But instead, it's kind of just like
hold on.
we're not
I'm
being
going to play
approached,
devil's
and he
advocate
doesn't.
for SGT. I don't think you're accurate because he had me on like 3 times, or we've done like 3 or 4 videos together. He asked me, tell me about Talpiot, tell me about 8200, tell me about the Israeli takeover, tell me about the temple, which essentially
I
is
get
the
it. Okay,
Sabbatean
but this
Messianic
thing, I'll
movement.
give
Chabad
him where
Lubavitch.
credibility is due. I'll give
Yeah.
him that. I'll give him the fact that he's reaching out to you. But honestly, I'm being honest.
To talk about
I'm
very
saying that,
similar topics.
and this thing, I'll give him the credibility that's due, my friend. I'll say yes, he's approaching you, but I would like him to be even more dedicated, and I'd like him to approach Brendan directly, approach me directly, message me openly. You know, when I talk to you in your comments, actually say something.
Yeah.
When I tell you that Jerome Corsi is directed to Rockefeller, Nelson Rockefeller, or Rockefeller in general through Israel, you know, try to say something. But instead, I don't get any of that. You know, I just get this like a stonewall, nothing. You know, every single person that you talk to, not every single person, but most people you talk to, like Talpiot, you know, Jeremy, they respond. Jeremy, the first time I said something to him about Drum Corsi, he responded and he made great videos about it. And it's crazy because I respect trustworthiness. I respect honesty and approachability. When you don't have that approachability, when you have this wall of like, oh, I have so many subscribers that I'm busy. You know, you're busy, I get it. But when you're so busy that it starts to obstruct you and your audience, then what's the point in the very end when you're focusing on the truth and awareness, right? And that's where I would draw the line. I'll create credibility. When you're busy, and I'll say, yes, he's approaching you. He's wondering now.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So this is a stepping stone. You're right. I would regard this, what we're doing now, as a stepping stone to him understanding. We'll see. This is like sort of like a honest challenge. How about this? No more news. An honest challenge I'm giving him now, just to talk about Robert Maxwell and Promise and its connection to 9/11, Trump, and Hillary. Just talk about it. It's connected to Epstein. It's connected to Bronfman and the Nexium thing. So you have to talk about Robert Maxwell. It's like the last circle.
Okay. I don't think that SGT is going to be watching this one, and he's probably pretty busy with the latest Q drops that are coming out.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But would you say I just want you to kind of like reinforce me here, so we don't have any miscommunication, you know? Because I agree. You know, I came off as too aggressive. I've changed my ways. You know, I've like adapted. Also, that was not normal for me. But I'm asking you for your kind of like some reinforcement though. Like when it comes to Robert Maxwell, do you maybe like this? I'm trying to give him like an honest challenge here. That he like maybe sometime he could look at this interview and he could bring what I'm talking about here. How Robert Maxwell's connected to everything he's talking about. It's connected to Nexium. It's connected to Stone. It's connected to Hillary, Soros, all of it. You know, like that'd be great if he would just talk about it, mention it.
Well, spam him with the video when it comes up.
Oh, I will.
I
will. I don't usually. This is the thing. I usually never spam him. I usually never talk to him or anything. I've only mentioned him a few times in my tweets, like 3 times, 4 times. But yeah, but you're right though. I mean, I shouldn't jump to conclusions. I'll give him this information. So
okay.
you know, we're all skeptical.
Let me read a couple super chats.
Things, and we all have our
Charles, hold on a minute. I got a couple super chats that I want to read real quick. Gregory W. Alex Jones Exiles. Oh, I like that. Alex Jones Exiles. Adam C.
I've never been on Alex Jones before.
Okay. Adam C. If you can get Alex Jones on your show. No, that's the guy's name. The guy's name is Alex Jones Exiles. He's not saying we're exiles.
Oh.
Okay, so he says, see if I can get Alex Jones on my show. Yeah, that's a funny super chat there. Like, as if that would ever happen. I ought to try to call into his show and call him out like a lot of people have done.
Yeah, that's impossible, though. I mean, I've tried. It's so much traffic.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's painful to listen to. He never goes to calls. It's just nothing but commercial.
It's bad.
You have to listen
it's so
live.
Much traffic,
it's awful.
It would never be a thing.
One more super chat. It says, we've won this tiny tactical encounter. Our strategy is, quote, top secret, GDL over. from Freeman King TM777.
I wonder if he's messing around. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But is there any real questions though? Because I would like it if we had some real questions.
Yeah, does anybody have a question?
JDL's nice and all, but some questions regarding this information would be great.
Okay, we're looking at the chat now, guys. Let's see a question.
Hey, thank you for everything, though, man.
Of
Especially
course,
with
yeah.
this...
Thank you for coming on. We got to wrap it up pretty quick though, because I got to go run to the restroom, drink a lot of water.
Any questions here?
Okay, question, guys. Okay, are you looking
Maxwell,
at the chat now?
Sabbatean Frankism.
What do you see occurring in the next 6 months? What's the plan of the Sabbatean Frankist? And
Oh, okay. Well, everything right now is revolving around Turkey, the CIA, and the Mossad, and of course Robert Mueller is, of course, I don't know. We don't know how much is legitimate, how much is authentic. That's the problem. We still don't know what's authentic and what's real, what's legitimate. That's the problem with Robert Mueller. But Turkey is somehow, I don't know if they've isolated themselves from NATO and the CIA and Mossad. Maybe it's just a front. We know that the Donmei is still a thing. They may have not. See, and the Muslim Brotherhood is deep within Turkey, and the CIA is deep within Turkey. So maybe there is some opposition to the Mossad in Turkey. We don't know. We don't know if it's a real opposition to Israel. We don't know if things like the FSA, like that Turkey created, we don't know if those things are really any good. If they're all just fake, and they all are. All the Sunni and Shia, not all of them, of course. There's some real people who knows who they are. But Turkey supports false flag operations, and they support the FSA and al-Nusra, and Israel supports al-Nusra. And then you have things like, you have private intelligence groups from Uzbekistan and Chechnya, and all these different groups. And the OGN News talks of there's a CNN front in Idlib, and there's all these different tactical groups that are ran from the Mossad or CIA or the FSB, Russian intelligence. So they're all just helping one another, or they're fighting one another.
Somebody asked, I'm sucking wind says, do you know the head of the Frankist movement now? Didn't they just evolve?
Well, there is
into
no
the
head.
Chabad
It's like a council. It's the same thing. It's why Judaism is centralized, but only to a degree. There's no dictator, and the dictator is the Messiah, and it's all about having a dictator. That's what it's all about. It's the dictatorial force to establish an autocratic dictator.
Well, the Messiah is supposed to be the anointed one, and the Sanhedrin is the top 71 judges of Israel.
Yeah, see, there we go. The Sanhedrin through the Talmud, and it's all about like a council. You have the oligarchy, which is a council, and then you have a dictator, which is the Messiah.
Who are some
It's different weird.
Who are some people who have covered Sabbatean Frankist Jews?
Not many people at all.
Eustace Mullins. I see Henry Macau covers. Yeah,
well, Eustace Mullins, he's the old school. He has to do more with the Canaanites and different research. Henry Macau, he supports Trump now, so we don't really know.
Daryl Bradford
not many
Smith.
People talk about him.
His show.
Tex Mars.
Tex Mars has covered it. Okay.
Yeah, but not many people. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Christopher Bolin has. Maybe I like Bolin also. I trust Bolin way more than SGT report. That's for sure. See, I'm not going to take any credibility from Bolin. Bolin has a ton of it.
SGT had Bolin on, and he told me and basically begged me to help him get Bolin on. Oh wow. Well,
I trust Bolin to a degree, but at the same time, I want Bolin also to recognize Robert Maxwell. See, so I have a critique of everybody. See, that's healthy, man. We need healthy critique. Brendan he needs to be more approachable. He needs to be less. He is.
You like to
Brendan
talk
is
about
doing
Brendan
better
a lot.
and better every single time he makes a video. He just needs to stop all personality attacks.
How come you like talking about Brendan so much?
Because I think he's one of the most accurate people when it comes to these subjects, and I think he's one of the people that first. He was first, like, I first talked to him. I talked to him through comments about Robert Maxwell. He responded, and then I went to Twitter and talked to Jeremy. He responded, and then I talked to Activist. I talked to Activist News first, also.
Yeah, you've been on his
Brendan
show before.
Was first affiliated with
Activist News, right?
until they had a falling out. So then I became less dependent on either one. I didn't talk to either one. Now I'm back and I'm talking to both of them. And they, but this is the thing is that I want to talk to Brendan. I want to talk to you. This is a great interview. But I also I'd like to have a multi interview with Brendan and John, both of them, Brendan, John, and Jeremy. I'd like to have all three of them. I have three challenges: one for SGT report, and Bolin concerning Promise and Robert Maxwell, and the third challenge is to Brendan and everybody else. So it's Brendan, John, and Jeremy. I want to get all three of them in a chat, and I want to talk about Robert Maxwell and Finkelstein. We can
Okay.
parallels between.
All right. Well, the challenges are on the table. Everybody heard the challenges.
All right.
Well, let's see. We're
Right
hour
on.
and 45. Let's wrap this up so everybody can
All right,
see
yeah, wrap
here.
this up.
Truthful Resistance, Charles, Zorro, Aria 11 at Zorro Aria 11, and the YouTube channel. You're gonna start making some videos and putting some videos up of this content
Yes.
at
Yes, I'll start here
Neo-Bolshevik
soon.
Zionist Revolutionary.
Yep.
All right,
That's
Charles.
my description of this.
Thanks for coming on. I enjoyed the talk. I'm glad that I'm definitely going to look a lot more into the Sabbatean and the Frankist and learn more about that. So I appreciate you helping raise awareness, and I respect and admire your passion in researching at such a young age. And I hope you
Thank
keep
you very
with
much.
it. And thanks for coming on.
And I have a newfound you. I believe that your platform. So
You're breaking up a bit.
Very
Say
much.
that again.
Oh, I would say thank you very much for letting me communicating with me and I also have a newfound trust for you. I trust you more, and I trust you because you gave this information a try. You came out and approached me also. It wasn't just all of my energy. It was you also coming back and approaching me with some of your human energy. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For that.
Thank you.
Honestly.
All right,
All right,
I'm
have a great
Adam
night.
Green with No More News. That was Charles from Truthful Resistance. My Patreon supporters make videos like this possible. Like, share, subscribe. Adam Green with No More News signing off. Thank you for watching. Good night, everybody. GDL, Goy out.